Do you wish you could get inside the brains of a cash PT business coach? Well, in today's episode of the Performance Rehab Authority podcast, we're bringing you a live panel with Frank Benedetto of the Honey Badger Project and Aaron LeBauer, two of the biggest cash PT business coaches in the game. Before we hop in, make sure you hit that subscribe button to stay up to date.
Where you can take action and use the information that they're giving you and help drive the change, help move things forward. Like, look for a new way to forge a new path for yourself and for any of your future clients or current clients.
Yeah, so the revolution is here. Rehab will never be the same. And Roger and I want to start off just by sharing some stories. And you guys are welcome to jump in here too. We want this to be a really interactive experience. This is a welcome. I want everybody to meet each other and start networking. Yeah, I mean, you want to talk about your first eval?
Yeah, I mean, you guys can feel free to turn your cameras on right now too if you're hopping in, you're in a spot where you can. That way it can be a lot more interactive as we're going along until we, hey, good morning, until we kick off the live panel. So yeah, I mean, when I first got into the profession, what even got me into this profession was through CrossFit, honestly, right? So when I was younger, I dropped out of high school, ended up in the Marine Corps to straighten my life out. And then when I was in the Marine Corps, I found fitness because before that, I just would run a mile as I was getting ready for boot camp, like in an all gray sweatsuit and do some bicep curls. And I thought that was fitness. I found out the hard way. That's not, that's not it. But then when I got out, I became the head coach or a coach at a CrossFit gym and then became the head coach there. And then that's partnered in the gym. What I found was that people are coming in and they were losing, regardless of how you guys might feel about CrossFit, they were losing a ton of weight, right? They would lose 50, 80, 100 pounds and get off all their diabetes medication, their metabolic diseases would be dissipating, and they would be internally the healthiest individuals that they had been in a very long time. And then they would get some orthopedic athletic aches and pains, their back would hurt when they're running or their knee would hurt when they were squatting. They'd go out and they'd ask for help. And they would just go see a PT, a chiro, a surgeon, their primary care, and they're like, ooh, CrossFit, weightlifting, that's bad for you. You should just stop doing that. And I was like, that can't be the right answer. So I started taking a vested self-interest in and started finding myself helping these individuals more than like the professionals work. So I was like, maybe I should get some legit credentialing behind this, right? And then when I was in PT school, I realized there's a huge disconnect. And I was going to be left with a whole bunch of puzzle pieces and no idea still how to help athletes, because there's no instructions on anything athletic in there at all whatsoever for me. So then I found out that like there was no gap there, or there's no bridge for that gap. And then, my first evaluation as a licensed physical therapist, I literally went into my boss's office because I was so unconfident. Her name was Tina. I was like, hey, T, I have a shoulder eval coming in. What do I do? And she was like, all right, look at this, this, and this. So I went, got the patient, brought them back, introduced myself, and then I looked at those few things and I was like, I'll be right back. And I walked over to her office. I was like, what do I do? What do I do next? Right? And I walked myself through my evaluation that way. And then that's really how I started learning how to actually be a therapist, was just by copying what I saw my boss and my coworkers doing and taking bits of things I saw them doing in evaluations and trying to copy it. And then like the same thing with exercises. At that point in my career, every shoulder eval I got impingement. That was their diagnosis, which it's not even a real diagnosis, right? So it doesn't set us up for success. And then, you start looking at all these different weekend courses and it's just more puzzle pieces we're left to kind of like just put things together on our own. And it really sets us up for failure and sets our clients up for failure, and nothing has changed.
Yeah, we look at the industry as a whole. So if anybody's ever worked at, let's say, an outpatient in-network, right? The standard, especially, I mean, if you're going through rotations, was, you put somebody on the bike or on the treadmill for 8 to 10 minutes for a warm-up, which isn't really a warm-up. It's not necessary at all. It's a billable unit. Or I even was a patient when I was in PT school and I went to a clinic and they did 2 rounds of ultrasound to warm me up. And I got billed for both of those. Nice. And months later, when I saw that in the mail, I was like, wait, what? So we waste all this time in rehab. That is not skill. Putting somebody on a bike or on a treadmill for 10 minutes just to get them warm so that I can go work with other people is not in any way, shape, or form skilled. And then when I'm also trying to work on documentation while I'm treating 3 other people, I'm putting somebody on a timer and then leaving them, they're doing the exercise wrong. And there's no, I mean, what dosing is that? You have no idea how many reps people are doing. There's no tempo. It's such a mess. And so then you walk over when you hear a beep from somebody else, and then somebody else's time is up. And at the clinic that I was in, we not only had a warm up, but we had a 10-minute cool down where you could either put somebody back on the bike and say, all right, you did great. You know, we're just going to do this so that you're not too sore tomorrow from what we did in the clinic that didn't have heavy weights, that didn't have anything that, like, we were doing table exercises. And so it's terrible care. And so there's this, it was a shuttle, and it's kind of like a leg press, but it's just band resistance. And so people would just go up and down for 10 minutes, and then they would get off. I remember one time I was so busy, I left somebody on there for like 23 minutes because I forgot to set the timer. And it's like, you know, that's terrible. It's terrible that that can even happen. Or that there was a time my first year out of school that I was so preoccupied with trying to get all the notes done and pay attention to all of this. Like, I didn't have time to do certain chart reviews, especially if a patient that was coming in wasn't mine, because everybody just shared patients. Nobody had continuity of care. And I worked on the wrong shoulder for 20 minutes. Like, shit like that happens, and it's not okay. And so that is why there is the revolution. That is why we're all trying to level up and get skills better and get patients the better care that they need, because our mission is to change the healthcare experience for athletes and active adults. Because you get somebody in there who's doing the same banded exercises, who goes to CrossFit, or who they're a runner and they're sitting down doing like foot exercises with marbles. Which, okay, if you have a reason for doing that, fine, but don't have them do it for 6 weeks. When they come in there, that can be a home exercise. There's so much wrong with dosage, prescription, the attentiveness that people have when patients are in there. And it's not the fault of the therapist. Like, everybody, I mean, everybody gets out of school and wants to be a great clinician. Nobody gets out of school and they're like, I want to be jaded. I want to hate my job. I want to get burned out. I want to give patients the care they don't deserve. Like, that's not why people get into this and do it.
I love all the notes.
We all get out there and we're aspiring to be the best. That's why in the beginning, like, we go to all these courses and we're like, I want to learn.
But
right?
In the end, though, like, a lot of people are lacking a system, right? Because we're not given a really good system of evaluation and treatment. We're left to piece it all together, where a lot of things end up getting missed over and over and over. And that's why people end up in the clinic with not getting 100% better. There's so many people that go to PT or to a chiro or to rehab in general, and they just get 75% better. They get 80% better. There's always like this little nagging thing, and we're left confused as clinicians of like, I don't know, I've tried all the tools in my toolbox. And I just don't know what else to do. And a lot of times it comes down to there's huge chunks of missing information in the rehab community. One, I'm big on like making sure that people have a really solid system of evaluation and treatment. That's like my thing. There's so many people that miss things in the eval because they don't have that system, but then,
or where you're at, you don't have the time.
Yeah, I say, but then you don't have the time. Like, and then there's no real exercise prescription and progression education that we're given. Like, there's no strength and conditioning 101 as a standard for physical therapists, for rehab chiros, for any of that stuff. So then you're out there, so many people do 3 sets of 10 because that's like the standard, and they don't know where to start or where to take it or what different exercises they can put in there or the thought process behind it. It just leaves people massively underserved, like being able to break down somebody's squat and see what their movement fault is that's causing them pain when they get to 250 pounds versus what it looks like at 130 pounds or whatever numbers you want to insert there. Like, people aren't given that skill set. So there's this huge population of people that are underserved. And then there's so many people in the healthcare industry that don't even exercise. right? It's like you go see your primary care, you go see a physical therapist, and they're morbidly obese. They don't live the lifestyle, and then they're trying to give you or give patients this advice on something that they actually know nothing about because they don't even live the they don't live the lifestyle.
And it's even better when that advice is, we'll just stop doing it.
Yeah, because they don't value it. It's like you don't go to a marriage counselor and they're like, well, you know what, you should just get a divorce. Like, you're here to try to solve the problem and have a better relationship, but you know what, just stop your relationship. Like, that would be silly, like, and there's so many you don't tear your ACL and go see a surgeon. They're like, you know what, just don't walk. Just don't do anything ever again. They're like, all right, well, let's figure out how to fix this, if you were obese and you were to go see a registered dietitian to try to get help with that, or see a personal trainer to try to get help with that, they wouldn't say, you know what, hey, just never eat again. That's your problem. Never eat ever again. It's like, no, we have to teach them new habits and give them the tools and give them systems to follow to set them up for success, to kind of walk them through the process.
I think that brings up a great point, is that humans are supposed to be able to move. Exercise is great physiologically, mentally. There's so many benefits to movement. And so then if we start looking at, let's talk about even people who have had pain for years, decades. We see people all the time who come into the clinic and they've been like, I've been to 10 different providers. Nobody can help me. I'm in this terrible pain all day. It doesn't make sense because it's in all these different places. And I used to get those people coming into rehab and I'd be like, damn, they're fucked up. And it was because of my lack of a clinical framework to understand. It was from the lack of time that I was given with the patient to actually dig apart the weeds of what was going on. But fast forward, like, we have people come in here now and we can identify what's going on. I have a guy who constant pain, both arms, both shoulders, his neck, both knees, ankles. He came in and like everything was painful. And it's been like that for the last 8 months. And he just wants to be able to work out. He loves going to the gym. He loves bodybuilding. And he's like, I just want to exercise. That's the thing that makes me happy. And he came in and we dig into things and we figure out what the root cause of everything is. And his mind is blown and his life is changed. His quality of life has improved because of physical therapy. And he's doing pretty okay on most days. I've been seeing him for 3 weeks. He's going to get so much better. And he's gone from having massive extreme pain every day where he's like kind of being grouchy with his family, to put it lightly, and he's not enjoying life. And now, like, we're doing great, living, we're exercising, right? And that's what PT has the ability to be. We have to change the system and change the way that the trajectory of like the way traditional PT and the way that we're trained in school has gone and the way that it's become, because it can be so much more. We just have to capitalize on the clinical reasoning and the framework and then be able to make sense of it to patients, because patient education is what's going to get them better. The 1 or 2 hours that they're there in the clinic, yes, it can help. It can set them on the right track, but they also have to know what to do all the rest of the hours of the week so that they're not making things worse. We have to be able to be their guides to living pain-free.
Yeah, like empowering them with the tools and the education to be able to take care of themselves. Anything comes along down the road that's similar, like, they know what to do and they don't end up in that situation. Plus, a big thing that we overlook, I feel like, I'll use the grand we here as rehab clinicians, is that we have the power to give people hope. Right? And like, that is a very powerful tool. We tend to see a lot of people at our clinic, because of our reputation for being able to help people that have not gotten help anywhere else. Like, we tend to see a lot of people that have gone through the system, that have gone through many, many different providers, and have just been told over and over again that they'll never be able to do X, Y, and Z, or they just haven't gotten to be able to do it. And they've had providers that haven't been able to help them, haven't been able to help them, and haven't been able to help them. So to see them go from feeling like maybe this is just what life is, right? This is what I have to live with, to having the hope and getting back to doing those things is amazing. And it doesn't just affect them, right? this affects everybody in their immediate circle, right? Like Caitlin was talking about her patient, how he interacted with his family, right? Like it affects his wife and his kids and whoever else is in the household or that he interacts with on a regular basis. Because think about it, man, when people are in pain, they're not the nicest people a lot of the time, right? And people even forget what it's like to not be miserable. Like they'll come in here and one day they're just like, they visibly look different. And they're just like, I haven't had pain. I haven't had pain in days, in weeks. And it's like this, I don't even remember what this feels like. It's pretty amazing. And, you know, we have a really good sick care system in America, right? Like if you're going to die, medicine is pretty good at keeping you alive right now, right? Like healthcare, like 1.0 was a bunch of trial and error of like, maybe someone's going to die. Let's try these things and maybe it'll help. Maybe they'll die. Maybe they'll live. Now we're kind of like in healthcare 2.0. I think I heard Andy Chen talking about this. Healthcare 2.0, like we're really good at keeping people alive, right? Like if you're going to die and you've got something really wrong with you, like we're pretty good at narrowing down how do we keep you from dying at this point. But what we're not good at as a whole is maximizing your life. Right? If you're having some type of pain or something's holding you back, like giving you the ability to live life to the fullest. That's where we're trying to take medicine. That's what we're trying to do with this whole revolution, is to push the profession forward, the healthcare industry, for active adults, for athletes to be able to perform at a high level without having pain, to be able to run and play with their kids and lift heavy shit and enjoy life and go on hikes and do whatever it is that they like to do, snowboarding, it doesn't matter, without pain. And we'll see some pretty gnarly cases, right? Like we've seen people that have been impaled, right, with a freaking forklift into a wall.
They don't come in right after.
Well, I'm gonna get that. Yeah, it's like we're not seeing them right there. Like they've been through rehab, a lot of it, right? Like this one person I'm thinking of, that she was impaled with a forklift through her midsection into a wall, and then the person driving it panicked and started bringing it up and down. She lived. And she had 9 surgeries. She had a stroke after her first surgery. She went to countless other rehab professionals, and her goal was to get back to CrossFit. And she could live her life, right? She could walk, she could do things. She always had pain, but anytime she tried to be active and do the things that actually brought joy to her life, she couldn't, because her pain would skyrocket. And we were able to take her from that place, not from the initial impaling, but like from that place, and get her back to doing that stuff with no pain. And just to see the difference in her as a human, in the joy that it brings her life, to be able to do that is amazing. You know, we've had people that have jumped out of airplanes and their parachute failed to open, and then their second parachute opened really late and they slammed into the ground at 80 miles an hour. Again, we're not their initial rehab, right? But we're able to take them from that place where medicine stops being helpful, right? Like you're not going to die. You have basic functioning, but you really don't have the enjoyment of the things that you like to do, and be able to take them from that place and walk them back into lifting and into, you know, running or whatever it is great. Because a lot of people, they want to be able to set the example for their kids as well. Right? They want to be able to be a part actively. Like they want to be able to throw a ball with their kids and teach them how to play baseball or football or whatever it is, right? Like they want to be actively involved. And when you can't do that, like if you guys are parents, like imagine how that would feel, right? And what a lot of healthcare providers in our setting, I feel like, lose sight of is that you literally can be the reason why somebody lives the rest of their life in pain and gives up. Or you can be the one person that helps them get their life back, right? And we get so disconnected from that. And a lot of it has to do with the way the current system is set up, right? When I was in my insurance-based clinic that I was working at, and I was seeing 4 patients an hour, like, and it wasn't every 15 minutes, it was Caitlin and 3 other people would come in, and I'd be like, hey, you, and you come on back, right? Like that doesn't set us up for success with that. And we're not going to change that system, right? We have to build a new system. We have to create internal growth, right? We have to need a revolution. That's the name.
And if you're in a position like that, where that is your current reality, it's not completely hopeless. Like you can still do your part. You can be the best clinician you can be. You can advocate for, hey, can we get some heavier weights in here? Hey, let's start using these types of interventions. Let's not do the bike warm up. Let's do the right things for our patients.
But
there's things that you can do within that system.
you still have to go against the system, right? Like,
Yeah.
all of my coworkers in that situation, they would do exactly what Caitlin was saying. Like, somebody would come back and be like, all right, you're here for your neck, go hop on the bike for 10 minutes to warm up.
Yeah.
Like, so you want to do what? Doesn't mean that you have to follow along with it, right? You can develop your own system. You can go against the norm, but it's pretty difficult to do that when you don't have other people that are setting the example, right? Otherwise, it feels like you're making it up, right? Like, you've got puzzle pieces, you've got things that you want to do, but you have no idea how to do it. And you have to deal with the backlash, really, of what happens in your company, from your coworkers, from the corporate, from whatever. And it can feel very isolating. But if you can surround yourself with people that are doing the thing that you're doing, the way that you want to be doing it, it makes it a lot easier to continue to push forward, because you can drive change in these places. You're not going to change the insurance like reimbursement model right immediately, at least, right?
But you can change it locally where you are.
You can change the culture, right? You can change the mission. You can change what you're doing. And then by you doing better, by you holding a higher standard, like a rising tide lifts all ships. Initially, maybe there's some resistance that you're met with, right? But then Caitlin starts doing something better than everybody else, and everybody sees that her patients love her and she's getting results. And they're like, well, I'm a little interested. Like, maybe I'm going to do that thing that I saw Caitlin doing. Well, Caitlin's not putting people on the bike. Maybe I'll ask her about that. Like, hey, why are you not doing that? Right? Like, what's your thought process? And then she can explain it. Now, maybe that person slowly stops following that same pattern that has just been set for them from when they come in, because that's just what we walk into. It's what we know as rehab clinicians from the very beginning, right? You go to a clinical and that's what you see. That's your first exposure to it. Maybe you've been in PT, when you were younger, and that was your exposure to it there. Then you just kind of keep perpetuating it. And it's just because you don't really know any better at that point. Hey, Frank, welcome to the party. And you can break the mold, right? But it starts with
You have to
framing a new mindset. Go ahead.
I was going to say, you have to, if nobody's raising the bar at your current clinic, you need to be the one to take initiative and start raising it. Because if the bar isn't being raised, it's set and nobody's growing. That's like, we're talking about self-growth. Like the first clinic, and this goes into like your skill set is similar to those around you because everybody starts doing similar things. At my first clinic, I just started copying what the other more experienced and seasoned clinicians were doing. Like plantar fasciitis, I would take the bucket of exercises that all the other clinicians were using. So everybody got big toe, abduction, and extension. We would do fissures, which are just like some movements like this with the foot. I would do single leg balance. And then we'd go into some eccentrics and lacrosse ball rollout. And it's like, all right, every single person. But again, that's just putting somebody in a bucket. That's treating their symptoms arbitrarily without really considering, okay, well, what did I even find in the evaluation? I just started using and copying what other people are doing. And the problem with that is you're only going to be as good as the people in your clinic, but you're not copying their clinical reasoning and their thought process. Even if they are good, you're just copying their interventions. And so there's a big difference between that. So as you consume all the talks and presentations this weekend, I want you to look for opportunities that you can take action, that you can use the information that these speakers are giving you and help drive change in whatever setting that you're in. Because we need to find a new path in the industry, and you can find a new path for yourself and for your clients. So we're about 1 minute away from starting off our live panel. We've got Frank here already.
Well, I'm excited to be here. Caitlin, Raj, puts together a pretty incredible event for your first ever time. Impressed.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, man. We're trying. Frank, thanks for joining us, man. Really, really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to help level up the profession and really drive the industry forward. I know you've been doing that for quite some time on your own, with a lot of very innovative things that you've done with your own businesses and helping PT entrepreneurs kind of break the mold and go some non-traditional routes.
Yeah. That's why I exist for it. When I saw the word revolution, I was already in, because that's what this profession is so damn broken that is the word.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm all with you in your opening remarks of this this amazing credential that we have is so powerful. And we've lost a lot of energy in debating about some bullshit of whether we should have got the DPT or not, or this, that, and, you know, fighting a 1 or 2 or 3% loss in Medicaid or Medicare reimbursement. Like we're just spinning off energy into left and right. And guess what? The big players, the big three, the insurance companies, the hospital systems, the venture capital based mills, the big, huge corporate chains, that's exactly what they want. They do not want people mobilizing, because there's actually a known pattern to every industry, and it's a period of consolidation and then a period of fragmentation. And there's sometimes different words used for this, but a period of consolidation is where big money gobbles up a whole bunch of small businesses and then makes one huge conglomerate that's massively powerful. And then inevitably that thing falls. It has to. It's almost like gravity. It is like the seasons of the year. And the big players who are controlling all the money in rehab right now do not want fragmentation. So this is the revolution here, is to have each individual take back the accountability of their career. And that one by one will destabilize the broken system. All of you are now a part of this, every single one of you. And it could be as simple as just speaking up. It doesn't have to be this like major drastic thing, like quit your job tomorrow. We know that that's not practical for 99% of you, but many of you are tolerating ethical situations that are not in line with your personal ethics. How many people could relate to that? Where put one in the chat right now. If you're asked to do something on a weekly basis that deep down you don't really agree with, maybe that's seeing multiple patients at the same time. Maybe that's seeing 4 to 6 people an hour. Maybe that's a billing strategy where you're like, is this even real? Maybe it's having to fake notes to just get approvals. You know, the list goes on and on. But what I encourage you to do is future pace. Do a couple more minutes of a monologue, and I'm going to kick it back to you for the Q&A portion here. At the end of your life, you're going to look back and you're going to realize that we've spent the majority of our waking hours working. That is the truth. That's the hard truth, is that when we look back, we are going to have spent more time working cumulatively than we will have with our children, because they grow up and they move on. There's these jarring graphs. I have 3 kids. I have a 15-year-old, a 12-year-old, and a 5-year-old. So I'm really in tune with this, because my 15-year-old's on the cusp of being on the downturn of how much time spent with parents. That's appropriate. It's a normal part of life. But I'm just so tuned in. And I lost my dad really young. So I was 27 and he was 64, and he passed away of a heart attack in front of me from medical mistakes, but that's another story. So I look at, and I've been around death a lot. My sister is 53 and is terminally ill. She has cancer, and last week they just found out that it's in the 7th location in her body, and treatment is likely going to be stopped. So when I say this, I'm not saying it from some book that said, oh, this is a cool exercise to do. This is from somebody who has been, death has just loomed around my life a lot. And we have to be able to extract the lessons from these tragedies and the challenges life throws at us. That's just part of life. And the one that I could take, and I want to implore you to make real, because you have no idea if one of these tragedies can happen to you or somebody you love, is that at the end of our lives, we're going to look back and ask ourselves some questions. And a lot of those questions are going to come down to, how did we spend our time? Did we do good in the world? You know, was it worth it? Was it worth missing out on the time with your kids, family, friends, parents, loved ones in exchange for that job? And I want all of you to be able to answer with a resounding hell yes at the end of your life. That's the frame. That's the greater why that trumps the fear of speaking up, the greater why of the fear of starting to post to social media, the greater why of fear of walking into the gym and negotiating your first basic rent. the fear of selling something to a consumer instead of using the insurance. That why needs to be something that pushes you through the fear. And if you get nothing else out of this, I hope that I have inspired you to just future pace yourself in that situation and make some choices, say they're going to make your future self proud.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a great way to start off the live panel. Thank you for sharing all that.
Also, like, yeah, one, that's thank you for sharing some personal things. I think that your frame of reference, right, is very huge. Like the lens in which you view the world depends, it dictates your decisions that you make and the way that you think about things, the way you view situations. And I think it's also important to point out that a lot of people have fear of what other people will say or what other people will think when they start to do things differently, when they start to try to improve a system or improve themselves or start a business or whatever it is where they're trying to have personal growth. And I think it's important to just state that nobody that's ahead of you that's doing the thing that you're doing is ever going to speak negatively about you or towards you or about you doing that thing. It's the people that when they look at you, they're afraid because they have this desire, but they're too afraid to do it, that will try to keep you at their level, so to speak.
Yeah, I think that the group think as a whole is one of the greatest barriers of our profession is experiencing right now as far as breaking out. So when we have people come to us and express like their fears, a lot of time it is judgment of peers. And the craziest thing about where our profession is right now is the crazy shit we've normalized. So when other people have normalized crazy shit, like the notion of just fraudulent billing being a thing that we all just do, it's just what you do to get visits. The concept of seeing multiple people at the exact same time, like it's lunacy. But because everybody else is doing it, it has made the person who actually speaks out crazy. And if you look back on like I love studying the history of real revolutions and overthrowing dictators. There's an amazing book called Blueprint for Revolution that I've based most of my professional life off of after the sale of my first business. When I got a chance to sort of reimagine what I wanted to do, I really wanted to overthrow the insurance dictators. And I looked to the inspiration of people who've actually overthrown real dictators, I mean, violent killers of in developing countries. And these stories are real. And you can, and they did this through nonviolent revolutions. Oppression is getting people to accept the dogma. And we are an oppressed group of people right now. And we have normalized something that is completely not normal. So, being able to be the brave one and speak out, we need more people to be the first people in their network to speak out, and you'll be amazed at what happens. Someone else will follow you. In fact, one of my favorite videos of all time on YouTube is the first follower effect. It's actually so good. I'm going to grab the link next time you guys are talking and I'll put it in the chat for you guys to watch after. Don't do it while I'm talking. That'd be rude to watch the link I gave you while I'm talking. Just promise me that. But this video is like 7 minutes. It's really funny. It's a guy at a rave outdoors, and he's a lone guy just dancing. He's dancing alone, and he's like, and the narrator is walking through how movements get started. So the lone nut is the person dancing alone in the field while everybody else is sitting behind him. And the lesson here, though, is that the lone nut stands up and dances alone for maybe 2 or 3 minutes. And it's so awkward, and you're like, oh, is he really doing this? Is he really doing this? And he doesn't give a shit. He's just dancing away. He's probably on drugs, but at the end of the day, he's a lone nut. He's dancing away. And then some very important moment happens. The first follower comes. And the lesson is that the first follower is actually the most important role in movements, because it teaches the crowd what to do. That there's only going to be a limited amount of lone nuts in any crowd, and that there are more candidates for first followers, people who will not move first, but they will move soon. And then what happens is the speed at which people start going up and dancing starts accelerating. So it becomes one person, 2-3 minutes of awkwardness, 2 people, a couple of people clapped out of like relief for the lone nut that he's got a partner. Then when the third person comes, 3's a crowd, and a crowd is news. So then all of a sudden 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then the whole thing flips where the people who want to be part of the crowd the people who never move soon, the people who never move early, now all of a sudden they feel pressure because the crowd is up there dancing. Now they're in the minority sitting down, and that's actually their uncomfortable place to be. So they start moving. So how the hell does this analogy relate to healthcare and physical therapy? Is that we need people like you. If you signed up for this to come here on a Friday, you're likely lone nut candidate, right? So we need you to be the lone nut in your circle and stand up and start dancing, aka speaking up, launch your own business, start speaking to consumers, whatever it means to you to take a stand publicly. And I guarantee you a first follower will come. And when the first follower comes, you will then start seeing more and more people launch their own things, start speaking up. Imagine if we had one person speak up at every hospital system in the United States, just one person. Imagine the impact that would have nationally. So the question is, 36 people here, hundreds more watching the replay. Are you going to be that one? Is that going to be you? Is today the day you're going to decide?
I think that's great.
Yeah.
I think that's fantastic. Also, I just saw Aaron log on. Welcome to the party, Aaron.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. I think I had the wrong Zoom link. Sorry.
Oh, no, you're good. Welcome. So I think all of that is a really good segue into first, if anybody has questions, we want this to be interactive. So either type your question or write the word question in the chat. And we'll start.
Just type the questions, so
Yeah.
we'll read them out for
Yeah.
you guys. So everybody unmuting.
But what's the most common question that Frank and Aaron, you guys get that comes up most regularly right now?
I'll kick it over to Aaron since I stole the show for the first few minutes. What's up, buddy?
No worries. Hey, Frank, what's up, man? How's it going? Most common question, you mean like with people getting started or as people have already, gotten started in their business?
Maybe just with cash physical therapy in general, maybe towards the beginning of business.
So the number one question is, where do I get patients to, pay, or how do I convince patients to pay cash? Because I think that, people are like, well, it's a marketing question, right? But how are they going to pay five times as much as they're already paying me for the same thing, right? I think that's the number one thing that I hear. But the reality is you can't sell the same thing, because if I'm selling physical therapy, hot packs, ultrasound, leg lifts, or even just dry needling, people are going to price shop for the cheapest thing. So we have to sell what they want and sell the transformation that they want rather than selling the commodity of physical therapy.
Yeah. Frank, anything you want to add on to that?
Yeah, my addition is imposter syndrome. It's the number one thing, especially from more of the newer grads. I see Jasmine laughing over there. Is that hitting home, Jasmine? So let's take a little survey. Who relates to the little imposter syndrome? Put a one in the chat. Let's see if it's just me and Jasmine, or if it's if there's any more in the crew. So the imposter syndrome is just this kind of ridiculous concept that keeps getting perpetuated. And what I would actually relate it to is it's almost like our own nocibic language to ourselves, that by acknowledging and diagnosing yourself with a syndrome of being an imposter, you actually are, every time you reinforce that as your identity, you move farther and farther away from the ability to take action, because identity is our biggest driver of behavior. Syndrome is a very strong word. So what is imposter syndrome? If we were to break it down, an imposter is somebody who is deceitful by nature, is deceiving other people for their own benefit, breaking the law oftentimes. And syndrome is a repeated pattern of behavior, or sometimes something genetic within someone. So when you read that, like, Jasmine, does that sound like you? Are you somebody who is repeatedly deceiving people for your own benefit? No? Oh, no. Oh, weird. That's how about who else? Ali, imposter syndrome, right? You're committing fraud on a daily basis, I would assume, if that's what. No. Oh, okay. So this definition is like quite literally ludicrous for us to identify with, and we need to just stop. We need to kill the term. It's not a syndrome. It's not a thing. It's not something we should relate to. It's fear. And the good news is that we're not afraid of something that we don't want in this context of fear, in the intellectual type of fear. We're never afraid of something that we actually have a desire for, right? So how many of you are afraid of owning a yacht? Anybody like terrified of owning a yacht? No. Well, it's probably because, I don't know, maybe yachts are not in your future, where you're not like, walking around going, oh my God, I'm just so afraid to own a yacht. Or like, it's just stupid, silly example. But where the reason why you're afraid is because you care. You care a lot. So how can we reframe that and say, oh, that's fear? And the way I teach people how to reframe that is by coming up with a self-talk statement. You could call it an affirmation, you could call it a mantra, you could call it a motto, you could call it whatever you want. It's got to be authentic to you. And I'll give you 2 examples to start. I trust that my intention is to help. All of you are here because you want to help. When you start feeling imposter syndrome, it can be dissolved instantly by recommitting to your intention that you're here to help. Because why? It diffuses the first part of the definition of imposter as somebody who's deceitful. So if your intention is to help and you connect that, you feel in your heart, feel in your body, boom, gone. Second part is I trust in my ability to figure it out. You live in a day and age, now it's not even the internet, you have AI. You could ask ChatGPT anything. You're going to get all of the answers, all the resources, everything possible. The world's information is at your fingertips. So if you commit to figuring out what the problem is that you might be stumped by, and you just tell them, give me 48 hours. I'm going to consult with my mentors. I'm going to consult all of the research. And I'm going to come up with a plan for you. You can acknowledge that you actually don't know what to do, but promise that you'll give it your all to figure it out. All of your patients will freaking love you for it. No one's going to be upset. They're going to say, wow, I've never actually had a medical professional say that. Thank you. So long-winded answer for imposter syndrome, biggest question. There's my solution.
Yeah, no, I think that's fantastic. There's so many people that are out there too that are not, they're afraid to just like admit that they don't know something and then go find a solution. And then I always have had this, like, anytime I see the word syndrome on anything, it's like a big red flag for him. Like, that's not a syndrome and you're not an imposter. Like, I think that was just very well said. We have a question from SG that says, thoughts on the best way to test the viability of a program, offer idea prior to going all in on it. Beta groups, key question asked those initial members as their experience with the program. So really, like, how do you test the water on something? And then how do you ensure it's a quality service before you go all in and launch it full on?
I got a good answer for that one. Hey, did you guys like introduce who I am? The fact that I've got red hair and I'm a Sagittarius and all that stuff?
So this is Aaron. Aaron has red hair. He's a Sagittarius, and he also coaches cash PTs on starting growing their own practices so they can break free from the mold.
Yeah. Hey all, what's up? My name's Aaron. I'm a Sagittarius. And but here's the deal. I think if you want to start with something new, there's a couple things. One is someone else selling it, right? So if someone else doing cash-based physical therapy, if that's the name of this, like, it works. So like that's not a product you have to go prove. We know it works. You just have to kind of, have the right mindset and attitude that you can do it yourself and that you're worth it. But if we're looking to launch something new, a new program, a new product, a new service, the kind of the way that I think about it is sell 6 of them. And once I sell 6, I know I can do 12. Once I do 12, I can do 20. Once I've got 20, I can get 100 people in. But I really almost have to have this critical number of like 6 sales to know that something's going to work. So for instance, let's say in my clinic, we're launching our Wellness Warrior program. I need to ask 6 of my clients, hey, I'm thinking about putting together this program based on what you've told me. I'm thinking about putting together this program. It's going to do this, this, and this, and it's for this kind of person. Does that sound like something interesting to you? And they'd be like, yeah, okay, great. And I've got a verbal commitment, but I don't have a money commitment. So then I can kind of test the waters with some questions, and I can do it on social media, do it on person. And then I need to get 6 people to pay for the thing. The number one mistake most people make is going and building a program and spending hundreds of hours and tens of thousands of dollars on building like an online program and never actually selling it. I've had 3 or 4 people come through my programs in the last few years who've done that, and they've all been like really struggled and unhappy and dissatisfied because they come in and they've got this amazing thing and they can't sell it. And they're like, I'm not selling it and this isn't working. Well, what they do, they built something that they thought people want, they know people need, but it's not what people wanted. And so what we have to do is figure out what our clients and customers want. So you can have all these great ideas and you may know like what the person needs as the PT or coach or, you know, the expert in your area, because you know what they need, but you have to sell them what they want. So we have to not just put together the idea of the program, we have to put together a good sales offer that outlines the benefits and the features, but what's more important is what it's going to do for them. So what it's going to do for them is more important than what they're going to get, because what they're going to get doesn't matter as much as them knowing that this is going to solve their problem. And so then it's like, okay, we've got 6 of them, depending on the price, depends on how you want to go sell it. But if you can get 6 people in, then you build it as they enroll. I've done this a couple different times. Just so you guys know, in 2020, when everything kind of shut down, I said, hey, I'm going to do emailed out my list and emailed everyone and did a big promotion. I'm going to do a 5-day income impact mentorship. And I was going to teach how to do a course, run a Facebook group, a podcast, you know, I think write a book, do sales pages or email more. I had like 5 big topics I was going to teach 2 hours a day for 5 days, $197. Teach the big things that I know how to do that you can make money online, and not a single person paid. $197 for 10 hours of my time in a week. And this was probably May of 2020 when no one was doing anything anyways. I was like, okay, that didn't work. Friday afternoon, I was like, fuck it, I'm going on vacation. So 2 months later, I changed the title and I took out 8% of the content. I called it Income Impact Academy. It was $197. And all I did was teach people how to launch a course and make money in 30 days. And I had 90 something people enroll in that, which was dope. So a lot of times people will try something and you might go and try. It's like, oh, I didn't get anyone. It's not a good idea. It's not that it's not a good idea. You just haven't hit the right market message match or reach the right people. And social media really throttles how we reach people these days as well. So you just have to kind of keep tweaking until you find the right thing. That's the thing. I think the number one question to ask is not to say, what would you want, but say, hey, I've put together this thing. Would you like it? You know, it's like the concept is like pre-baked cookies. You came to my house and I said, hey, Jennifer, I'm thinking about making some chocolate chip cookies from scratch. Would you like me to make some? And you'd be like, no, don't go out of your way. But if you came over at 2 and I said, hey, I just pulled some cookies out of the oven, would you want one? You'd be more likely to say, yeah, I'll take one. And so we don't actually have to have the thing built, but we have to have the idea built, and we want to offer the idea and see who bites.
Yeah, I think that's a great point of like kind of selling the thing first, right? And then building it along the way, because you put a ton of time, ton of money into something and then have it flop. And then also good points about like the market message match, like the way that you package something and present it, the title, all that can play a big role. Frank, I'm interested to hear what you have to say about all this.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it was a really comprehensive answer. I don't think I have too much to add that wouldn't overlap or have some redundancy. I think there's a fundamental principle that I believe in, is not having the audacity to build without your people. So what we do is help people get to a minimum viable product and then invite people to be beta testers, always paid, because free won't give you the same information. And you study their user behavior almost like a tech company inside your practice, regardless of what type of product or offering you have. And then you use their indirect feedback, how they are actually acting from your observation, as well as their direct feedback of what else would you like to see inside this program, or like what the direct feedback. And a lot of times the indirect feedback is more powerful, but you need both. And then you iterate and iterate and iterate. So the process of growing your product is nonstop being informed by this funnel of information coming from your clients, which only gets stronger the more you go. So a lot of parallels there. I think that question was, very thoroughly answered.
I'm curious to hear a little bit more about that, observing their behaviors, right? That indirect feedback. Can you talk a little bit more on that?
Yeah, I pull a lot of inspiration from tech companies. My dream too late in life was to go to Y Combinator. Y Combinator is a Silicon Valley incubator where you could go with any idea, any business, any topic, and in 6 months through principle-based learning, have that idea be in the world as a real product. Now, the like Airbnb, Uber, Coinbase, Dropbox, like basically any company that changed the world, there's a good chance they came through Y Combinator. And I was obsessed with it. So when we sold our first practice and I had my second graduation, you know, it's like I got a pause to say, like, what do I want to do in life? And I was 36 or so, or 35. There's a little part of me that wanted to just take an idea and go there. But I had 2 kids. We're about to have our third. There's no way I could go live in California and do that kind of a life. That's a young person's life. So what's the next best thing? What would it take for me to create an incubator myself where I could be the person helping create more creative businesses and then investing in a handful of those that I believe have massive potential? And I just became obsessed with like studying all of the existing incubators. And then that led me to most of the incubators built just purely tech plays, like tech companies. I never really had the desire to have a pure tech play. I believe in blending tech and service-based models to create something really unique. But what I tried to do is pull from the tech world. The tech world, all they can do for the most part is study user behavior. That's literally what it's called, is user behavior. So Duolingo, for example, has an amazing public article about how it studies its user behavior of how long do they stay on this screen? How many times a week do they come back? And all of these type of things. So how can we apply that to our PT practices is like when you use a home exercise program app, how often are they actually doing it? How often do they send you messages? What time of the day do they send you messages? What type of questions do they send you? Which type of equipment are they more gravitated to use on their own? So these are things where you could observe what they're actually more into. So for example, let's just use a real life example. I have a business for fighters, combat athletes. There's all sorts of wearables that you could use. What we did was send our first 5 people a basic heart rate strap. We sent our next 5 people the Whoop, which is a biometric wristwatch with no watch face. Then we sent some people the Oura Ring. And then we sent some people Morpheus, which is like a super specialized thing. And we just watched how they respond. We watched which ones would send us like screenshots of, be like, hey, coach, what's this data? We watched which ones created more engagement versus not. Then we also asked them, what do you like about the piece of technology? And that is 2 very different data sets. Does that help paint the picture of that?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for expounding. That actually explains a lot about the way that you you think about things as a broader picture, which is awesome. Guys, one more time, little call to action here. If you guys came in after we asked people to turn their cameras on, or you're now in a situation where you can turn your camera on, let's get more faces on here, because it really makes it a much more enjoyable experience for everybody when we can see all the faces.
And if you have any questions, just type your question in the chat box and we'll hit that next. So we have a couple of questions ready already. So let's talk monthly recurring revenue, or specifically a model that generates predictable revenue, because that can reduce stress, especially for many small businesses who are used to just making it month to month. So what practices or strategies would you recommend to providers who are seeking monthly recurring revenue?
So good question. I'll take the first crack at that if you don't mind, Aaron. So
Yeah, go for it.
This is a big topic of discussion lately internally with me and my business partner, because I believe that there is a dynamic formula of different phases of business and life that should dictate what percentage of paid in fulls, PIFs, paid in full equals PIFs, versus when you're optimizing for MRR. So let's just say in the beginning of a business, cash flow is the most important thing. Cash flow means, let's just use easy math, because I'm really bad at mental math. So I have to give myself like 3rd grade level examples to use. A $2,000 program, let's say what you sell is worth $2,000. If you sell 5 of them paid in full, you have now collected $10,000, right? So you have 10,000 physical dollars of cash, of course, minus the fees to collect and all that other stuff, so that you can pay yourself, reinvest, spend it, on different pieces of software, mentorship, all books, all the type of things. Now, if you sell those same 10 things, $2,000 spread out over the course of a year, let's just call it $200 a month payments, you have collected now just $2,000. That is a very different cash flow perspective. There's likely no money to pay yourself. There's no money to invest. You're basically paying your fees to collect it, some taxes, and you have very little left over. So what usually happens is in the beginning of a business, cash flow is priority. Then what ends up happening is you want to transition to a very strategic amount of MRR, where if you can have your monthly nut, so if your baseline expenses are 5K or 10K or something along those lines, if you can build to the point where you have your MRR products, your subscriptions, your either front end or back end, meaning front end, this is a product you sell directly to the people, or your back end as a discharge program. So you might sell a package of sessions up front, or a hybrid package where it's blended, or maybe even insurance-based, and then you discharge to monthly recurring revenue. If you could get to a point where your base monthly nut is covered by your MRR, it's just operating from a totally different mind space. And then beyond that is where you're trying to hit new limits through your paid in fulls. You might reach a point later in business where you're not interested in playing the cash flow game at all. And now you're looking more for lifestyle. So if you're about to have a child, if you want to travel the world, if you have an ill parent and time becomes the highest priority, now you want to say, okay, how could I optimize the whole ecosystem to be, 80% MRR, so that it's not just tapping the basic nut that you have to pay at the end of the month, but that's accelerating and create real ongoing profit. So that's like the general framework.
Yeah, dude, that's great. I think that the one thing that I want to add that I think physical therapists miss is thinking that we need to get patients out as soon as possible, especially when you're transitioning from being an employee in network, or how we were trained in PT school to say, hey, okay, insurance will only pay for so much. So someone comes in my practice and they have back pain, and I treat them for back pain, and in 5 visits, they're good or good enough or better, or they even think, hey, it's gone. And we're like, cool, you don't need to see me anymore. Go away. And then that person goes away and they have a neck issue or a shoulder issue later, and they go to their physician, get an MRI, and they go get surgery. And then you're like, well, what happened? Well, what we didn't do is look at the whole person. In massage therapy. So I started my career as a massage therapist in 1999, and I did that for 10 years. And we're trained to treat a patient and ask them at the end, when would you like to come back in? Is this something you'd like to do monthly or weekly? And we just rebook people. But in physical therapy, rebooking people is when they don't need it or have a medical impairment is like almost unethical. But why would it be unethical if someone enjoys coming to see you and having you work with them? And so I think what we miss is that when the plan of care is over the plan of care, like, okay, people don't need to go on their own way. We can continue to work with them long-term, even if it's not weekly, maybe it's monthly. And so in-network businesses and even cash practices aren't creating these long-term, you call them wellness programs, or maintenance programs, but these long-term relationships with people, and you should have some kind of ongoing program. And so I had a patient came to see me, and he came in 3 times in 4 years for the same back issue. And each time he would finish up a little bit before I recommended he stop. And finally he's like, Dr. LeBauer, do you think if I came in monthly, this wouldn't happen? Because each time it got worse, because he was just you guys have all had someone do this, right? And I said, yeah. And so we created our Wellness Warrior program, where basically he pays for a visit monthly, but he gets priority scheduling, access to the PT, got a membership card, a t-shirt, and some other swag. And we've had dozens of people in this program. We've even had people come in and pay $2,000 a month to come in 3 times a week, or bring their spouse in a couple times, et cetera. But people are missing this opportunity because as physical therapists, we think people have to be completely independent of us. And that's not really true or fair or what they want. They'll go find it somewhere else. And who better to treat them for a ongoing issue, like a physical therapist or a trainer, stretchologist, or even massage therapist. I mean, I think that we're the best people for the right people. And I think that we're missing that opportunity to create these long-term relationships with people. And that's where a MRR type of program can come into place really easily.
Yeah, I think it's funny because if you ask any physical therapists, right? Who can benefit from PT? They're programmed to automatic responses. Everybody.
Mhm.
At the end of like a plan of care, they start singing a different tune, and they have a hard time trying to justify it. So let's talk about the shift here a little bit, right? The revolution that we're seeing doesn't just involve a revolution of like the care, but also the way that we're gathering our clients, right? So we're not, a lot of us aren't out here like groveling to physicians and going down that road and trying to build relationships with them by going and bringing in cookies and lunch and asking for clients, right? Like we're doing this direct to consumer marketing. So there's a lot of people that have cash practices that have good relationships with gyms, coaches, right? You can just grab people that are walking down the street and have them come in. And there's a lot of people that are in like Facebook and Google ads. Do you guys think that there's any like opportunities that are untapped that clinicians aren't taking advantage of to be able to get themselves known and have people just come directly to them?
I think yes and yes, it depends on what you're already doing and a little bit of personality. I think the biggest opportunity that people are missing isn't the social media marketing. It's sharing their journey and their life through social, like documenting their life through social media, but also, and building the know, like, and trust. But really the number one opportunity people are really missing is putting themselves in front of people because they're afraid, whether it's the imposter syndrome or afraid of rejection, you're just unwilling to do that. But the more you get in front of people and position yourself as the expert, the more opportunities we're going to have. Advertising wise, like Facebook, Google ads, yeah, those are good, but they often bring in bad leads, or if they bring in the right leads, your sales are terrible. And people always think that they need more new patients to solve their problem. And really you need a lot of times better systems and sales conversions. But I think the bigger opportunities are the things that you're afraid of doing. And if you go do those, then you'll have a more well-rounded marketing strategy.
Yeah. My contribution here is that my brain thinks in frameworks. Like everything I see is a cross section between like the quadrants. And the quadrant to me here is there's a cross section to like where your desired people are, where your people are congregating, where your audience lives, where are they on the internet and where are they in the real world. Dumb easy example, if you like to work with golfers or tennis people, you need to go to golf facilities, you need to go to country clubs, you need to go to the golf Facebook groups. They're not all that easy. You don't need to pick a sport, but that's just an easy way to look at it. The next cross section though is what you enjoy. And I believe that one of the areas I've recently changed, so I would say in the last year after working with 800 clinicians through the startup process, is more so trying to match where somebody's natural strengths are with the marketing strategy. Because if you're just straight up terrified to film yourself and you feel terror while you're filming yourself, the people on the other side are going to feel that energy. And that does not lead to sales. That does not lead to leads. So you have to reconcile these realities of like, maybe you tackle that at a later phase of business, but you thrive more on in-person relationships. Well, and match your business model and who you are trying to serve with your natural strengths. And because all of it, like, we didn't get education in school for any of this stuff. So we're not just a beginner at business. Business is too big of a word. That's like exercise. I'm a beginner at exercise. Well, what do you mean? Like you could be an expert in swimming, but never have touched a weight. You could be an expert in weightlifting, but you've never ran. So in business, there's a dozen or more skill sets that you're going to be a newbie at. We have to try to set ourselves up for success and match our marketing strategy with what we feel natural with, but we have to accept the constraints of our decisions. So if you say, okay, I'm not going to use social media marketing, we have to accept then the constraints of that and then potentially titrate the zoom or the lens of which the business model that we're going with, and also the type of people we're trying to serve. And then that can evolve and change as you get your business reps in. So once you get more comfortable, let's say, talking to people in person, then you could maybe start filming yourself with some more confidence. And it's also low pressure because you're not trying to get the business started off of a strategy that you don't really feel comfortable with.
Right. Frank, you've probably heard this too, but I have people come to me and they're like, I want to create this online program, but I don't want to do social media. And I'm
Yeah.
like, those things don't go together. Like, yeah. But
Yeah.
that's the thing, is you can't try to create something that you don't feel comfortable doing. Exactly.
100%.
Yeah. So with the rise in PT practices, there's also, I think a lot of entrepreneurs who have started to feel the burnout of realizing, like, now that means working all the time for their business, because business is a different bear than just working a 9 to 5. And so they're constantly now doing, especially in the beginning, doing marketing events to bring in new leads. So what options do people have to not be out there relying on having to constantly market and market and market at local events, maybe during their family time or on the weekends?
There's two things real quick. One is you can create an automated process through automated email, text follow-ups that help you generate leads, because the best patients are going to come from people who've already done business with you. It's harder to get brand new leads. But then it's, so that was idea number one. And then how do you not have to constantly do it? Oh gosh, my brain just dumped the other one out. It's more about understanding that growing a business is always a process. And if you don't like doing the marketing, well, then you probably need to like do something else. But you should love the process of business and not the outcome. But you can set it up so that you create an automated process that generates you leads, and you can do marketing events, but you can also do other events, other types of business growth. The thing that most people miss is that you really, to get to the business, you need to get beyond yourself and hire some other people to service your clients so you can do more of the business growth. And I think that that's the number one key to getting out of that, is enjoying the process, setting up the automated systems, and having other people on your team to leverage your time.
Yeah,
Right.
so we have a philosophy. So I had what I call a practice business. So in 2015, we launched our first ever clinic inside gyms. I launched one inside my hometown gym, and then one about 20 minutes away in a completely different market. The one inside my hometown embarrassingly failed flat on its face, closed the doors within 10 months. The gym is closed. I had no idea it was coming. It was a big failure. My other business, though, took off. And it took off so much so that I was working all the time. I would actually skip sleep once a week on Thursdays for months on end to do all of my notes for the entire week. So I would basically treat every morning as soon as I possibly could, have a little break during the day because that's when people don't want to get treated. And then I would be back there. And I missed so much time with my 2 kids at that time that I luckily picked up on it early enough. And within 9 months, I was able to pivot out and start to hire. But I then worked myself into a regional manager job. So I basically got 5 locations under my belt, 10 clinicians. And then what was my time spent doing? Driving between all of those locations. And I remember one time in 2017, 18, I was like, holy shit, I succeeded my way into a job that I hated. How is this possible? I thought I had it made because I hired the team. I wasn't doing the treatment. I was only working with fighters. I had a couple of UFC fighters that I was personally working with. I, on paper, had the dream, but I was dying. And that's partially why we sold the business. You know, so we sold for a number of reasons, but I was lucky to be able to get a profitable exit because I really just didn't want to do it anymore. So when I graduated and sold that business, I was able to take a few months off and think, like, where am I going to reset my career? I really pulled together inspiration from several different resources and created this concept called the life design. So life design is where you put the constraints of the business in place first before you even start making money. And I have a resource. There's no opt-in at all. I just dropped it in the chat here. Let me just double check that's the right one. Yeah. So that's straight to a PDF. I encourage all of you to download it and use it. It is a series of prompts that will help you reverse engineer what you want life to look like so that you build a business around those constraints. And this is almost like a lens that you put on that when you make decisions through, you say, does this match with my life design? Yes or no? And with new information, you're allowed to change. So I recommend doing this quarterly. Put it on your calendar right now. Every 3 months, you revisit this because you will not know what you actually want, because this is a skill. And like any skill, you need reps. So most of us were not trained in how to design a life. We are trained to how to build a certain amount to make a certain amount of money. And then when we get into business, we just sort of replicate, maybe improve it in certain ways. But the real goal is for business to be the vehicle. Life is the destination. And when you start to lean on technology, you could build around the constraints of your life. And sometimes it's actually, the momentum, when you start winning, you get more and more opportunities to come to you. And there is an old adage, and it's cliche, but it's true, in that you will be judged. Your success is more dependent on how often you say no rather than how much you say yes. And in the beginning, that's so hard to wrap your head around. But as soon as you start seeing success, another gym asks you, can you start up here too? Yeah, I can. And another gym asks you, I can. Can you hire me? I really want to work for you. And you start making decisions based off of other people seeing your success and want to be a part of it. And overall, that's a positive. But one day you might wake up and you accidentally succeeded your way into a life that you don't like. So what I do is every 3 months, I sit down alone first, then with my wife, and we redesign based off of the new information. And then I look at my businesses and say, what do I have to cut? What do I have to add? Who do I need to hire? How much more money do I need to make to be able to build this system, hire that person, get this software, whatever it is. And you can keep working your way through this until you end up with this beautiful work-life balance where life and work, because of these constraints, have a dynamic interplay.
Yeah, that's amazing. I think that's a great viewpoint, because so many people don't get into business with those constraints, right? They end up having a business that controls their life instead of a business that supports their life. Kayla and I have a similar process where we sit down and map things out, not quarterly.
We use giant Post-it notes and we put them on the wall. And it's always a game when you take it off, like, did the permanent marker get onto the wall or not? It's great.
Love that.
Yeah. But yeah, did you want to?
Yeah. So Leanne said, as an advanced menopause exercise specialist, and my movement is a weight loss coach, I would like to work together with a PT where we could offer menopause workshops in clinics and refer to PT. Any suggestions how in PT clinics could be a win-win for both? Any thoughts?
You mean, like, is this like a clinic inside another clinic, or is it just a referral relationship?
Yeah, it sounds like a menopause exercise specialist that wants to be able to develop relationships with PT clinics. So then I think that's a good question of how can we have an interdisciplinary relationship within a clinic, with inside a clinic that's win-win for both sides, and like how to go about developing those relationships.
Yeah, I think the number one strategy, it's just about developing like a referral relationship, is don't lead with an ask, lead with a give, lead with an open hand. You want to find, number one, find who are the people that have your clients and customers. And two, we want to build relationships. And the more that I can show up and give without expectation, the more likely I am to build a good relationship, because people want to do business with their friends. They don't want to just like send you people because, they have it. I think I had a massage therapist contact me when I was first getting started, and she wrote a letter, and it was like, hey, I'm a massage therapist. I'm really good at treating plantar fasciitis. So if you have any patients with plantar fasciitis, I'd be happy for you to send them to me. And I was just like, but I treat that. Like, I don't even know, like, why would I even send you somebody? But if we approach someone and we want to know, we find out who they are, you can even lead with saying, hey, this is what I do, and I'm trying to find, I often have patients or clients that need your services, and I just like to get to know you and a little bit more about your business. Do you have 5 minutes to chat? Where I'm going to be in the neighborhood this week. Do you have 5 minutes? We'd be around in the afternoon, so I can stop by and introduce myself. And we just want to give and ask questions about who they want. And then one of the best questions to ask after you kind of build a relationship is, how do you think we can help each other? And then, they're likely to be like, ooh, well, I don't know. And you can be like, well, what if I put together a program for your clients? Now that you know about them, what if I put together a program to do X, Y, and Z? And then we start building a relationship. And then people are more likely to, ask you questions about who you want to treat, who they can refer to you. And then those highways get really wide open.
Beautiful answer. Full support.
Yeah. There's a great book for everybody on here that I love. It's called Go Giver by Bob Berg and John Mann. Highly recommend everybody reads that. Okay.
I'll actually give one more layer from my perspective is PTs tend to be too humble, right? We tend to be, there's an expression, if you dig deep enough into the networking knowledge base of the internet, that says like, be interested, not interesting. Who has anybody heard that one before? Be interested, don't be interesting. That's wrong. So that is wrong. You need to be interested first, then be interesting, right? So when that first version is taken literally, all we end up doing is asking questions about the other person. So what else do you do? Jasmine, what else do you do? I've been picking on Jasmine the whole time. I'm just going to keep doing it. You're right next to me and you're in like where Zoom is. So I'm talking to you. You always got to connect with one person in the audience. Me and you, Jasmine. So like, Jasmine, what do you do? You just keep asking them questions and you could succeed in getting somebody to talk about themselves and then they will like you because of that. And that's often where PTs stop because we're terrified to talk about ourselves. So after you have been genuinely interested, not just because you know it's a tactic, but like genuinely heartfelt interest in the other person, it is your turn. If the other person is a normal, well-adjusted human being, at some point they will ask you, Jasmine will say, Frank, what about you? She'll reflect some of the questions that you've asked. And now it is your time on the stage to be interesting. How I recommend doing that is by leading with a question first that gets them to lean in. So the number one thing that I say when I'm at a networking event is this, right? So we're talking and Jasmine says, Frank, so what do you do? Now, the typical PT thing is to run into your I help statement. I help so-and-so, achieve this, achieve that. We need those I help statements. We teach those too. But at the end of the day, what I say is, you know how healthcare sucks? And it usually gets the other person to go, yeah, they laugh. And now for a split second, I have tunnel vision because they're wondering where the hell I'm going with this. Because the other 10 conversations they've had like this, the person goes off on a monologue about what they do. So I would say, you know how healthcare sucks? And they say, yeah, I'm trying to change that. What's the only response they could have to that? How? Very powerful moment when they are asking you how. You have temporarily opened up the neuroreceptors to actually download and integrate information for a very short window of time. So take this framework and make it your own. So if you're out at a gym and somebody asks you what you do, what's a question? What's a way you could phrase it as a question? An easy one could be like, how people with chronic pain are like failed by the medical system? I'm trying to do something about it. How? And now you have a window to start your pitch and create a real meaningful relationship.
Yeah. So I think we probably have time for one more question for you guys. And I think it's a situation that many cash practice owners are familiar with. And it's riding the wave, right? Of they go out, they do a bunch of marketing events, they get really busy, and then they're too busy to do the stuff that got them busy, and then they're not busy anymore, and then they're stressed out, and then they go panic and do a bunch of marketing events, and they're kind of stuck on the hamster wheel there. What do you guys think is the solution to that? Or how can they prevent putting themselves in that situation entirely?
You want to take it, Aaron?
My ADD got in the way of all the question. This happens a lot. Raj, can you just ask the question again?
So cash practice owners go out, do a bunch of marketing events, get really busy.
Yep.
Right. And then they get too busy to do the events that got them busy in the first place. And then they have less new leads coming in the door. And then they panic, they go out and they do a whole bunch of marketing events. So it's constant highs and lows that they're going through of like, oh, I'm really busy. Oh shit, panic moment. I'm not that busy. Oh, let me go do all this stuff. Like how do people circumvent that situation?
I think what the real question that I want to know is, what's your goal, right? Is your goal to just, maximize your time and revenue and help people and maximize how many people you want to help? Or is your goal to grow your business beyond yourself? So if the goal is to grow your business beyond yourself, you're going to hit that rev limiter And then what we have to do is make a decision to hire someone so that you can buy your time back. But if you're like, I don't want to hire anyone else, or I don't want to hire another PT, we have to look at, okay, we just have to either like live with that, or what we have to do is maximize your price points and your time in other ways, maybe hiring an admin or automating a lot of the processes that you're doing. So you're still just buying your time back and just understanding that there's going to be a wave that I ride. But if we can rely on automated marketing systems and not just in-person marketing systems, the automated ones can run while you're sleeping. And I'm not talking about just Facebook ads, or even Facebook ads at all, paying for ads at all. It's like, do we have a good funnel and value ladder that brings in leads and new clients automatically through search engine optimization, Google, social media, stuff that you can kind of batch and then automate. But you will hit this rev limiter, and that's okay. But if you want to get past it, we have to really grow past just you and look at how do we hire. I think the next step to get past this is hiring a team, but there will always be this wave that we have to ride. But if I can put in more time and get more people in person, I need to figure out a way how to do that without trading my time for the leads. And that's really this, back-end automated emails, texts, lead magnets, funnels, and things like that. And there's a lot of other ways to do it, but I think that's like, to me, the thing that smoothed out the leads. So their leads come in while I'm not there, or while I'm sleeping, or while I'm treating patients.
Yeah.
So cash flow is like a drug. And the very first time you get paid in your own business, there is no shot of adrenaline that compares. And then the first time you hit that 10K month, and you hit that 15K month, and you hit that 20K month, and then what ends up happening is you have to have the discipline to not make more money so that you can either build systems or train people. So this is where that cash flow equation comes into play, where, okay, let's check the box of what you need to live so you're not in scarcity mindset and survival mode. But let's say you need $5,000. That's fine. Okay, let's check that box. But let's get to 10 grand or 12 grand or 13 grand so that you can reinvest 3, 4, 5 grand into systems, processes, whatever, people, hiring. But if you get to 20 and 25 grand, yeah, that feels really good in the short term, and you put that money in your bank account. But at the end of the month, you've created 0 systems. You don't have any infrastructure. You have no team. That's creating the drastic yo-yo. There's always the wave. But when you go through these extremes by just chasing the next dollar, you will then plummet all the way back down because you didn't build something that gives you a solid base. And that's where you should be very strategic about where are you going to stop and have a season where you build infrastructure, then go into another season of growth, infrastructure, growth, infrastructure, growth. My partner Cedric has an expression, there's a season of fruits and there's a season of roots. That's a quotable quote. You should be writing that one down. Season of fruits, season of roots. And you should be deciding, this season, my goal is to maintain this minimum viable income level while I grow more roots. In this season, I'm going to grow more fruits. And when you're really intentional about that, it gives a completely different feel to being a business owner because you're not now being kicked around by the waves.
Yeah, which brings us full circle to what you're talking about earlier with the different phases of the income paid in fulls and recurring revenue.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
I think this has been fantastic. Frank, Aaron, thank you guys so much for being here. You guys are both 2 of the industry leaders in PT entrepreneurship. We really appreciate your thoughts, your time, your input. And guys, welcome to the Rehab Revolution Virtual Summit. If you missed it in the beginning, I'm Doc Caitlin Vela. This is Doc Raj. And the mission with the summit is to uplift the profession and change the healthcare experience for athletes and active adults. Because again, for so long, active adults have gotten thrown around the medical system and don't actually get the care that they need. Patients get misdiagnosed, or they're just told to stop doing the thing that they love doing, whether it's running, squatting, lifting. And that's terrible advice because it just then perpetuates the problem of sedentary adults, right? And so that's why this is a revolution. It's supposed to be big. It's supposed to be polarizing. So this is a rehab revolution, not only to give active adults and athletes the care that they need, but also to take care of you guys, the clinicians who are burnt out in the existing system, who are looking for another way, who want to level up. And so this weekend at the summit, again, go through all of the talks, make sure that you click on every single one, because each of the speakers here are making waves in the industry, and they're people that have been driving the change. So consume all of the talks and the presentations, look for opportunities in your life to take action, and use the information that they're giving you to help us move forward. So the revolution is here, and rehab will never be the same.
Yeah, so guys, make sure you look up Frank and Aaron, find them on the Instagrams. Frank just dropped his link in the chat. Aaron, if you want to drop your link in the chat to Instagram too, so you guys can give them a follow. They're doing big things. Our keynote talks are available on this page that I'm trying to drop in the chat right now. There it goes. There we go. So my talk's available now as of a couple minutes ago. Caitlin's is going to be available at 12, and you guys are also going to get them in an email. Frank, Aaron, thanks again so much for being here and for contributing to the revolution. And we'll catch you guys later.
Yep. Thanks for having me. And remember, we need you, the audience, who's going to be the lone nut.
Thanks, Frank. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Kate. Thanks, Raj. Thanks, everyone, for having me. Appreciate you being here, or whatever, inviting me to be here.
Thank you, everybody. We'll see you soon.